and welcome back to the Boropolis Podcast. This week, we have an awful lot to get our teeth into, of course. 2 wins in somewhat of a week of destiny for Middlesbrough in their hunt for the playoffs. Of course, as always, I'm joined with Nathan. Nathan, it's been a while actually since we've had 2 wins to talk about on the bounce in a podcast, so I'm guessing you're feeling pretty good. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm buzzing. It has been a long while since we've had back-to-back wins in the podcast. Before the last international break, as it happens, which feels like a long time ago now. But yeah, an important week for Boro. We had a game in hand. We needed a win in that one to sort of have any chance of getting in the playoffs. We weren't quite as emphatic as Blackburn were a few days before. Blackburn, of course, won 4-1 at Preston on last Monday evening now. And Chris Wilder wanted to have his side, Middlesbrough, follow their lead and be emphatic and win our game in hand in midweek, and we did just that. And of course, we got another fantastic result on the weekend against Stoke as well. But we'll get into those in a bit more depth in a second, I guess.
Yeah, we will do. Just before we really delve into the Cardiff game, we were just speaking prior to starting recording and saying, really, it felt like for the first time in a few years that, you know, we've had a little bit of a week of destiny. You sort of look back at the playoff final season and the promotion season. Of course, you could argue, you know, the Jonathan Woodgate season, we had a week of destiny where we had to try and stay up. But, I mean, it's not really great having a week of destiny with relegation looming. So just in terms of a promotion/playoff picture, week of destiny, it's been a while, hasn't it? And it's, you know, it's good to have the season still alive at this point in the season, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's certainly been, as you say, a long time since we've had that season-defining week where we've looked at a few games in particular and said, well, we need to win these ones or else it's over. And it would be officially over as well with the way results have gone. But yeah, it's been a bit of a high-pressure week for the players, and they've come through it really well, I think.
Yeah, they have done. So, of course, plenty to get into. First game of the week, our game in hand, of course, Cardiff at home. We spoke about it last week, previewed it. Didn't really want to mention any players' names. Anyone that may have listened to it probably was aware that we were talking about Jordan Hugill starting for Cardiff. So if you got that, well done. I'd like to think, if you are listening to this podcast, that you did manage to get that one. But that went to show how nervous we were going into this game, because as we've said, you know, a week of destiny, it would have been cut short very quickly had we have been beaten on Wednesday night. Fortunately, we obviously got the job done. But going into the game, there was a few changes, or I should say a change, and a few surprises in the team. Of course, the one change was Flo Balogun replacing Josh Coburn. Ironically, last episode, we spent pretty much the full thing talking about how he was out in the cold and had fallen off the face of the earth, but he was back in that front too. Also, I think where I've messed up there a little bit, Nathan, is I was surprised that Sol Bamba remained in the team, because, of course, last week we thought that Dale Fry would make the Wednesday night, and of course he didn't. So Bamba retained his place in the team. In terms of that lineup and the one change, how were you feeling when that come out an hour before kickoff?
Yeah, I think pretty much if anyone listens to this podcast, they'll know that the general thought between me and you over our forwards is you can chop and change pretty much any of them together, and you can go with any partnership. So Balogun being in the side was a bit of a shock, because he hadn't really been given a sniff over the last few weeks. But yeah, it was nice to see him get a start, see if he could hit a bit of form, offer something a bit different to what the others have offered in recent weeks. But we just needed our forwards and our players to just be well, on the money, be clinical, take the chances that we had. And luckily that they were in that first half, really, because there wasn't all too many chances, but the one that there was, it was taken.
Yeah, as you say, it was all the pressure was on us. Cardiff, they're in no danger of getting relegated, and of course they weren't going to make the playoffs. So it was all on us to take the game to Cardiff. And when it first started, the game, it probably didn't quite go that way. It was a little bit cagey, and probably rightfully so. Of course, there was an awful lot of nerves in the stadium. I think Wilder said afterwards, you could sort of tell early on that probably the stadium as a whole was a little bit of a nervous crowd, and I have to agree with him on that. It was such a big game and so much at stake. It's hardly surprising, really. But as you say, after a cagey start, we do take the lead. Marcus Tavernier taking shooting lessons from me. With that, by the way. And yeah, giving us the lead, and actually quite a well-worked goal, in fairness.
Yeah, it was a good move. McGree picking up a second ball from Cardiff, half clearing it really on the edge of their own box, knocks it back into Helsing, plays it forward. Balogun sets it nicely for Tavernier, who takes one touch out his feet and fires it low into the far corner. Possible question marks over Cardiff's keeper, Dylan Phillips. He does get a touch on it, possibly could tip it around the post or parry it, but we'll take that in a moment where there wasn't too many chances early on. Boro create that half chance for Tavernier, and he gets a fantastic strike away, tests Phillips, and yeah, we go in 1-0. It was an important goal at an important time, really. It settled the nerves perfectly well. I think even Wilder said that in his post-match press conference as well, that at that moment in the game, the goal was very important, and we got that. It did settle the nerves, as I've said, and from then on, it kind of felt pretty routine.
Yeah, it probably didn't. Of course, with the benefit of us recording this a few days after the games, of course, we now know that actually Marcus Tavernier probably shouldn't even been on the pitch, just showing the dedication and the sort of the resilience of this group of players that we've sort of really got probably closer than the fan base have with that squad in, again, a number of years, really. Chris Wilder, prior to, of course, the game on Saturday against Stoke in his pre-match press conference, telling everyone that actually Tav hadn't trained at all. Pretty much, I think he said until the morning of the game, pretty much he said that he hobbled out, done a little bit of shape, had a late fitness test, somehow passed that, and of course played. I mean, if that doesn't show just what Marcus Tavernier is about, I mean, just going back to earlier on this season, it seems a little bit mental that, Marcus Tavernier is in amongst the goals, an absolute fan's favourite, probably one of the last players that, if you would take out of this team. It's second half of the season, he's been remarkable, and I mean, that just makes you like him even more, doesn't it?
It does, 100%. Earlier on in the season, he divided a lot of opinion, mine included. I felt that by a certain section of the fan base, he was massively overrated for what he was offering to that Middlesbrough side, pre-Chris Wilder, pretty much. But since Wilder's come in, he's been Middlesbrough's best player by, I don't want to say by a long stretch, because of course we've seen fantastic performances by others. But he's certainly been up there as one of Middlesbrough's best performers under Chris Wilder. He's made that left-hand side of midfield his own. His energy in there is absolutely fantastic, and when he's not in that midfield, he's missed massively. You can tell the impact that he has on this Middlesbrough side, and he stepped up for us on Wednesday night in a big moment and put that shot right in the far corner and put us 1-0 up. An important goal at an important time by a very important player for Middlesbrough at this current moment in time.
Yeah, exactly, Nathan. And as you say, we went in at half time. Not really much happening before we went into the break. And then actually, probably the best thing what we needed, and again, probably to settle everyone down, a relatively quick goal in the second half, doubled the advantage. And that man, the Australian, I was about to call him the Australian king there. I'm not sure where that sort of come from, but that could stick potentially. Yeah, in the words of Ali Brownlee, the big Aussie, although probably not quite as big as Mark Schwarzer, doubles the lead. Another good move. And Johnny Howson heavily involved again as well.
Yeah, picking up a loose ball again. It was important during the game. Cardiff struggling to retain possession again. A loose pass finds Howson. And what we've seen from him all season really continues, driving through the midfield with the ball, looking to create. And he slides in McGree, who was breaking forward. And a stroke of luck, perhaps, with his finish on his weaker right foot, takes a big, massive deflection off Curtis Nelson. Wrong foot, Dylan Phillips. Phillips gets that touch on it again, but it's not enough. It goes in the back of the net. Middlesbrough 2-0 up. And from then on, really, there was no sort of danger from Cardiff. Perhaps there could have been a goal for them with a stroke of fortune when Max Waters hit the bar from a cross, a blatant cross as well, may I add. And a bit later on in the game as well when Dijksteel makes a fantastic block. But yeah, it was pretty routine from then on in, really. It was a game where there wasn't many chances really for either side, but on the night we needed to be clinical, and we took the chances. We had the strokes of luck that we needed, and we went in 2-0 with a clean sheet as well.
Yeah, as you say, it was a bit of a weird one really, because although we didn't have a bucket load of chances, and of course we did take the few chances that we did have, it always felt like we were in control, didn't it? And yeah, I mean, Cardiff, in fairness to them, didn't really offer an awful lot. As you say, that Max Waters cross, which somehow clipped the bar, probably made everyone's heart sink for a few seconds. But as you say, apart from that, even the Dijksteel block, don't get me wrong, it's a great block, but it wasn't like they fashioned a great chance. It was more so, I think, probably us shooting ourselves in the foot. But yeah, I mean, a solid performance. And to be honest, job done. That's the best way you can describe it. One incident, should we call it, that did divide an awful lot of opinion on social media afterwards. I think, firstly, I've got to say, before discussing it, I don't claim to be Aaron Conley's biggest fan at all. Throughout doing this podcast every week, I've been pretty critical of his performances. But he come on for the final few moments of the game on Wednesday night and was greeted to an awful lot of booing. It's not great, is it really? It's not a good look for the fan base. And although, of course, he's been a little bit of a disappointing signing, I don't really think there's any place for that. And I would probably expect a little bit better from our fans, I must say.
Yeah, it's not great at all, is it? Very disappointing. A player that the low move hasn't really worked out for him. He hasn't quite hit the front like we would have wanted from forward. But Flo Balogun hasn't either. Andras Sperrar of late hasn't either. If you're going to boo one player, then I'm not condoning the booing at all, because I think it's embarrassing, truthfully. But if you're going to boo one player, for his performances, then surely it's got to be the same treatment for all. No, it's not great at all from sections of the support to be booing our own players. Voice your opinions in other ways. Just say to your mate, "Oh, he's not great." It's plain and simple, really. We've certainly had worse players than Aaron Connolly at this football club, and players that have lacked effort more than anything. And I think the one thing that can be said for Aaron Connolly is he certainly doesn't lack effort. Chasing down loose balls, pressing centre halves when they're in possession, and for a player that you could tell already that his confidence wasn't quite the best coming onto the pitch. It was certainly going to be shot after hearing the boos as well. At one point in the game, Connolly won a throw in for Boro down on that near side touchline near the dugouts, and you could hear Wilder shouting, well in Aaron, like good from you," trying to just encourage him for anything, a throw-in, really. It's nothing in the grand scheme of things, but trying to just give him any sort of encouragement so you can tell his confidence is shot. And the fact he's getting booed from certain corners of the ground is not great at all, really. It's not great. And as for the reaction after the game of Connolly walking off the pitch and not applauding the fans, and those getting angry at that, well, why should he? Why should Aaron Connolly go and applaud the Riverside for the certain sections of support booing him? It seems strange to me that people would be fussed that he'd not applaud the fans that had booed him. I don't quite get that myself.
Yeah, it's certainly a difficult one, isn't it? Because it's almost like a little sort of issue that you try to just push to the side because everything's quite positive at the moment. But we do have to obviously mention it, and I'm sure there's an awful lot of people who may be listening, who might be watching, screaming now at the phone, not quite literally, but thinking in the head perhaps. Well, what about the video that emerged on social media afterwards? Now, of course, we won't go into details, but it doesn't reflect great on Connolly. I think that's for sure. But of course, that video emerged after the game. So if we're just basing it on the booing of Connolly as he enters the pitch against Cardiff, then no one was aware of that. So they couldn't hold that against him. It is purely down to his performances. So, yeah, I don't want to discuss it for an awful lot, but I did feel like we should touch on it. And as you say, I'm not one for booing your own players at all, unless something, seriously goes wrong. And in fairness to Connolly, although his performances probably haven't been up to scratch, I don't think he's done anything, well, up until that point that, massively let himself down or was disrespectful to the club. But moving on from that, because I don't want to get drawn too much into the slight negative of this week. Of course, we got that job done against Cardiff. We move on to Stoke on Saturday. In between that, of course, we should mention as well that Sheffield United, despite going 1-0 down against QPR and getting everyone's hopes up a little bit, managed to get the job done in the end. Beat QPR 2-1 away, and meant again that the pressure was all on us. We simply had to beat Stoke. Otherwise, season over in game 45. And again, Middlesbrough pull through, do their job. 3-1 victory. Fairly convincing. I'd say very convincing. I think that's probably underselling it a little bit from me. Some good goals, some good moves. Probably could have been more. All in all, a good Saturday afternoon, really, Nathan.
Yeah, it was. I felt like early on, we could have been in for a bit of a difficult afternoon. Stoke they're a good side. Just sort of fell off in the second half of the season. It seems to always be the case with Stoke, really. They seem to always have a relatively good start to the season and tail off towards the end, which is quite strange, I suppose. But they started off relatively well in this game, having long spells of possession in the first sort of 15 minutes or so, without really creating any chances. But yeah, you felt like once Middlesbrough got one, they could sort of fall away and find themselves out of the game a little bit. Of course, they didn't have anything to play for in this game. You sort of think that the on the beach mentality would sort of kick in eventually. And yeah, we were about 20 minutes in, starting to find our stride a little bit more in the game. Some good play. Sparrow holding the ball up quite well, knocks it back into McGree. McGree finds Helsing, and his first touch is magnificent, really. Takes it round Baker, of course, ex-Boro. We did mention him in the last podcast, anonymously, for those that were trying to guess him. Yeah, his touch is phenomenal. Helsing takes it round Baker, finds Crooks, who's making a forward run from midfield. And again, a bit fortuitous, but yeah, a little deflection. Wrong foot's Bursic in Stoke's goal. Boro 1-0 up. And again, settled the nerves. Meant Boro were on the front foot. And this time on Saturday, we followed the 1-0 lead up in the first half and quickly doubled that lead moments later.
Yeah, we did, of course. And just on the man that opens the scoring, of course, Matt Crooks back into the team after his suspension. Just briefly, I know we didn't quite mention some of the changes. The big one really was Crooks back in after suspension. Of course, his introduction back into the team meant that went out wide into that wing-back role that we've seen from him a few times this season. And in fairness, he's been effective pretty much every time he's been in there. Bowler drops out. McNair, through illness, drops out as well. And Bamber also dropped out. And of course, as well as Crooks, it was Fry and Peltier. And also, he's Slovenian, Andras Sparrow, back into the team. After a while, a little bit of a surprise, I can't lie. But I think the main ones were probably obviously Dale Fry and as we've mentioned, Big Crooksy, Big Tree back in the team. So back to the point where we are 1 goal in the lead, playing well. And as you say, I always felt like as soon as we got one, Stoke were just ready to fold, to be honest with you. I think once you know, although they had possession, that back line especially, Jagielka, and in fairness, I don't think he had a bad game. But, there's a few aging players in that team, and I felt like if we really got at them, it would be pretty much turn out the way the game did, really. As you say, we go 1-0 up, then get a free kick out wide on the left. Johnny Howson involved again, whips one in, and Lewis Baker seemingly forgets that he's no longer on loan at Middlesbrough, flicks a great header on, in fairness to him, and doubles the lead. Lewis Baker, thanks for that. Maybe it is down to the fact that we never mentioned you last week, and maybe that is a tactic from now on, Nathan. We just don't mention. We don't do any preview. We just don't mention any players and hope for the best.
Yeah, it was a fantastic header, really. Just that deft glancing header in at the far post. But it didn't matter who put the ball in the back of the net. Boro were pleased. Well, I was pleased that Boro doubled the lead, really. From then on, it felt like in the stands, it was very much like, keep scoring, we can get this goal difference situation sorted with Sheffield United. But it felt like we could have scored as many as we wanted from then on. Scored a third. Watmore headed down. I don't know who headed it down. I can't remember for the life of me. But yeah, Watmore turned in, but the linesman's flag was up. I'd already stood up. I was already celebrating like a Doyle. But yeah, half time, 2-0 up. It was pretty plain sailing, I felt. Felt going into the second half, we needed to take more chances, really. We could take more chances and kill the game off completely. But there were some Stoke chances as well in that second half.
Yeah, there was. I think the real change in the second half was, of course, the two substitutions for Stoke. Of course, the vastly experienced Stephen Fletcher was introduced, and just a word on his hairline, by the way, because he was struggling a few years ago, but he's in great shape now. I don't know where he's been for that, but credit to whoever's fixed that out for him. And also Nick Powell introduced as well, who, you know, whatever you say about him, I think he's got one of them weird techniques where sometimes he actually looks like he just can't be bothered to play football, but he's got an abundance of talent, and he really changed the game for Stoke. So those two, for me, were the real reason Stoke got back into the game a little bit in the second half. And that man, Powell, in a few flashes, tested Daniels, was delivering balls in behind the Boro defence and putting us under pressure a little bit. And actually, I thought Stoke probably started the better of the two in the second half, to be honest.
Yeah, they did. As you say, Powell had an opportunity, try to strike it into that near post, coming in off that left-hand side and striking into the near post. But Daniels made a good save. But yeah, you always felt that they were dangerous. You look at the players on the pitch there: Stephen Fletcher, Jacob Brown, who's their top goal scorer. Powell, I think he's just coming back from injury actually, so that's why he started off on the bench. But yeah, they had a lot of danger men. Even Vrancic, who was of course at Norwich, coming off the bench as well a bit later on in the game. But yeah, although I've just named a load of danger men there, they didn't create all too much that tested us. Okay, I've just mentioned the Daniel save, but there wasn't too many openings. Maybe a bit
openings, probably.
Yeah, half chances, I think. But despite early pressure from Stoke in that second half, Boro got that goal again. Corner comes in, Fry heads back across, and Crooks just prods home. 3-0. It felt home and dry then. The 3 points were well and truly in the bag. That's what was needed. But again, now fans are thinking about goal difference. 3 was, of course, never going to be enough for the Boro fans in the stadium. We had another opportunity. McGree and Coburn both flying forward. Sorry, just before I mentioned the chance, Coburn coming on for Sperrar, I think it was at the time.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Good ovation for Sperrar as well. What looks to be his last Riverside appearance, although the second half of the season probably hasn't gone quite as we all would have hoped, especially with his run of 3-3 around Christmas time, where he scored against Bournemouth, Forest and Blackpool in the matter of a couple of days. He's been a decent player for us, Sperrar. Again, not quite as we would have hoped, getting to that 15 goals and the promotion mark quite yet. You never know. But yeah, a decent player that connected well with the fans, I think. It's fair to say. And although you weren't there, Chris, that day, that Blackpool away will live long in the memory.
Yeah, I mean, he gave us some good well, you know, he may still give us more memories. We're talking as though the season's done and dusted. It's still very much alive and kicking, to be honest. But yeah, I know what you mean. Of course, if for whatever reason we don't make the playoffs, it was a fitting exit for someone who probably for the years to come will be remembered as a little bit of a cult hero. Probably along the lines of a Jelle Vossen, where, possibly it hasn't worked out as much as everyone first thought. But all in all, I don't think you could say that Sparrow's been a bad signing. Certainly not. Of course, in a position, striker for Middlesbrough that, historically has been pretty dreadful, to be honest. He's certainly given us some good moments and some good performances as well. Just going back onto that chance that you were talking about, Coburn races through. I think actually he can probably pass earlier than what he does. Opts to get himself into the box. Then Stoke managed to recover it. And basically they make an absolute joke of a clearance, and somehow the ball ends up going back into the air. And the unlikeliest of source, Riley McGree, heads one, almost sort of just stands, lets it hit off his head, and then it hits the base of the post. And it was a bit of a weird chance, that, wasn't it? It wasn't really well worked, but somehow we hit the base of the post off it, and actually it was a lot closer than what it probably looked from certain parts of the ground.
Yeah, and it felt like that one, that sort of spell there with Coburn and McGree was probably our best chance to get the fourth, really. From then on, there was a few nervy moments for Stoke, really. Jacob Brown had a few efforts. The one that sticks out was his header that looked like it was just about to creep into that far post as he's headed it back across goal. I think it was Fletcher coming in as well, trying to chase after it as it was heading towards that far post, but it just skims past it, and Fletcher's too late as well. But that was a big chance. He fired one over the bar as well, did Brown. But then the moment that sort of left a bit of a sour taste in Middlesbrough fans' mouths at the end of the game was Stoke's consolation goal. Vrancic, as I mentioned earlier on in the podcast, a bit of a danger man. Of course, people are remembering from his time at Norwich, where he'd come up with a few big moments for them as a creative midfielder, and he does well here. Chops inside, chops outside again, fires a shot across Luke Daniels, and Daniels can only parry it, and Powell's there to just sort of tap it in with his studs pretty much. You could see the players were very frustrated with conceding that goal. Dale Fry, especially at the full-time whistle, going down the tunnel, just shaking his head and speaking with those others in the back three, trying to work out where it had all gone wrong for that goal. But 3-1 win. Yeah, it was pretty routine to get that win. Could have been more. It wasn't. We could have conceded more. Luckily, it was only one. But we're still in with a shout, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, of course, the one moment prior to the goal, of course, which has dominated the news really today. Just prior to Stoke obviously pulling one goal back, young lad runs on the pitch, gets his photograph with Tav, I think it was, gets a little bit of an ironic cheer, and to be honest, at that stage, we're 3-0 up. I think everyone was, just expecting us to add another, to be honest, and actually in that added time, of course, which is created from the young fan running on the pitch and getting his photograph, Stoke end up scoring, and Chris Wilder was not a happy bunny with that at all. Since then, obviously, that young fan's father, I believe, has been banned forever. And to be honest, probably deserved. In the statement from Middlesbrough today, they say that the father of this young lad has recorded the full thing and then been a little bit abusive upon being asked to leave the stadium. And what I would say is, if that is the case, then good. I think in terms of this incident, I know a few fans run on the pitch at the end of every season. It just does happen. And although that's not right, at least do it at the end of the game. Don't do it while the game's still going on. I mean, I don't agree with running on the pitch at all, especially when you've achieved nothing. But then to run on the pitch during the game, at what age, even if it's a young girl or boy, the parents in that case should be telling them that is absolutely not okay to do. And there's almost a little bit of an acceptance, I think, at times in football, if a kid runs on the pitch, that it's okay, but actually it just shouldn't be allowed. It is really zero tolerance if me or you ran on the pitch. And you might think I'm going a little bit OTT, but if me or you ran on the pitch, we'd never be allowed in the stadium again. And it's just a lot of kids as Chris Wilder said, hundreds of kids wait after the game, get the photos taken with players, have a little chat with the favourite players, and it's all very nice, and that's a really nice part of football. But that just, as much as it annoyed Chris Wilder, it's probably annoyed me just as much, to be honest, Nathan, because there's really no need for it at all, is there?
No, there's not. I didn't quite realise at the time, sort of just forgetting as the game goes on. That kid ran on, will have added time on to the added time, and didn't realise the goal was scored quite as late as it was, 94th minute. Just typical that something like that would end up with Middlesbrough sort of being caught out, really. It's whilst that is playing a part in Middlesbrough conceding the goal, it'd have been nice if sort of we just defended it. I'm not saying that the kid should have run on the pitch, but the defending for the goal was a bit iffy as well. I felt like Daniels probably could have saved it, but yeah, unfortunate. Typical that it would happen. When you look at other sides like Coventry, who have someone that runs on the pitch every single week and they always score last-minute winners. So it just swings and roundabouts. It's strange how things happen, but yeah, you never know. That goal could be pivotal in this end of season race, which would be typical, as I've said, but also very infuriating as well.
Yeah, I mean, of course, we don't want to get drawn into that, but it would be very much typical Boro, and I dread to think some of the reaction if that goal did end up costing us, and it's a distinct possibility it could well still do that. But yeah, after, of course, that moment and they score, I think the result, of course, the fact that it dented our goal difference a little bit was slightly disappointing, but overall a positive performance. We took it at the last game of the season, which I think everyone would have accepted throughout the season, really. And then we have the lap of honour. Just again, probably a good while back now, really, we discussed the connection between fans and the playing staff and the management staff as well. And actually, them few moments at the end of the game, following full time, players going around, having the children and the partners on the pitch, and the coaching staff coming on, was just a really nice way to cap off the season, of course, at home. Bearing we, of course, get in the playoffs and have another home game. But for now, it's our final home game. And yeah, it was just nice to see that connection again, because to be honest, it probably hasn't been that way for a number of years, as we've sort of already discussed a little bit.
Yeah, and as you say there, I'm just thinking to myself, it's been a number of years since fans have been in for the last game of the season. Of course, last season, full season behind closed doors. Season before, the back end was behind closed doors. So I think the last time we will have had fans, Tony Pulis will have been in charge, which we've had three managers since then.
Yeah, that is frightening, actually.
It is.
Yeah, that is correct. You're right. Do you know what? I hadn't even thought about that, and that is blown my mind, to be honest. And I actually remember Tony Pulis not even coming back out for the lap of honour. I mean, that just goes to show what he was about. But yeah, that is quite frightening, actually, how quickly, or not how quickly, how much time has gone by in a few football seasons, and you sort of lose track on that. Actually, that was, it'll be 4 years ago now, 3 years ago?
4 seasons ago. 4 seasons ago. Yeah, unbelievable. Don't know how that's gone by as quick as it has, but yeah, football and the world has moved time so quickly over the last few.
Do you know what? I'm a little bit lost for words at that Tony Pulis that you've just. I really hadn't thought about that, and it's just remarkable how much time's gone by.
Yeah, it is quite frightening, really, isn't it? But yeah, as you say, nice to see the lap of honour at the end of the game. Nice to see the players come out as one group, and then the coaching staff come out as another group to both get the correct reception for both sets of players and staff. Good to see Wilder smiling as well, pushing Leo towards the fans for a bit of admiration. I'm sure Leo won't mind that. He's very much a part of the fans. I think it's fair to say, and yeah, he's a part of that Boro family, if you want to call it that. But yeah, a good way to send off the home crowd this season. They brought us some fantastic memories at home. I think the obvious one's Tottenham, but if you want to go all the way back to the start of the season, Bristol City, first game home with fans back. I'm going to throw it in there because he's still one of my favourite players. Uche getting that first goal back. I'm glad he didn't play on Wednesday as well. It feels important to say that because I felt he would have probably given us a bit more of a hard time than Jordan Hugill and Max Waters will have done, and probably will have. We'll have probably fell foul of a Middlesbrough curse if Uche was allowed to play. But yeah, as I say, fantastic memories at home. 8 home wins on the spin as well, which is absolutely remarkable. I don't think in my lifetime I've ever seen us go unbeaten at home quite like that. Winning both emphatically like we did against Derby in that game that felt big at the time because of everything that was going on with them, and we just wiped the floor with them in the first half. Last minute goals against Reading with Crooks popping up with 2. Yeah, fantastic season at home, and well worth the season ticket prices.
Yeah, of course. When isn't it? Even when we were nearly getting relegated, that ticket price was worth it, and it always will be. Now we are in a position where we are recording now and pretty much fresh off the back of probably one of the shock results of the season, to be honest, I think you can say. At the time of last week's podcast, it almost felt unthinkable that Luton would be going into the final game of the season with a chance of being leapfrogged by both Sheffield United, Middlesbrough or Millwall. Of course, that would be an even bigger goal swing. But after today's results, Nathan, they have just been annihilated 7-0 by Fulham. I mean, Fulham are a great side, don't get me wrong, but I didn't see that coming from a mile off. It opens it up even more so now, doesn't it?
It does. It's come as quite a shock. Although Luton were always in touching distance, it felt like all they needed was a point, and that was a few weeks ago that they needed that point to secure playoffs. and a top 6 finish, but injuries have hampered them. Injuries to key players, I must say. Also, they signed Matt Ingram on loan from Hull yesterday, which now makes him their 6th keeper to play for them this season, which is, it just proves how much they're struggling with injuries, really, and not just in that department, but all over the park as well, with a player like Alan Campbell, who's key to their midfield, dropping out injured in the warm-up today. So, yeah, they're seriously struggling, but the table is looking very sort of strange at this moment in time going into this last game. Of course, Sheffield United, now with Luton's goal difference being absolutely battered today, Sheffield United have moved up a place without playing a game. So they're in 5th on 72 points with plus 12 goal difference. Luton in 6th with 72 points and a plus 7 goal difference. And then it's us, Middlesbrough, 7th place, 70 points and a plus 12 goal difference. I think I said Sheffield United was plus 12 as well. So they're plus 14, we're plus 12. And then just behind us, Millwall, who are there with an outside chance. Millwall, 69 points, plus 9 goal difference. It's all looking very tight around that sort of, I wouldn't say 6th place, but it's 5th and 6th now that are available. They always were, but it just didn't quite look
feasible. It never felt that way. I honestly thought, I mentioned it before, when we started recording our last podcast, I thought it's a straight shootout between, of course, Blackburn was still sort of in the mix then as well, but I always felt it was a straight shootout between us and Sheffield United. And of course, that's changed in the space of course, the last few results, but, massively today, because at this stage of the season, to take a 7 to your goal difference, a -7 to your goal difference is, it really changes the shape of the table, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. So I'll just reel out the big 4 games of next weekend. Now that everything's pretty much sorted, everything is with the relegation zone. Fulham have wrapped up the title, but we'll get into this now. Bournemouth are playing Millwall at the Vitality on the South Coast. Tomorrow, Bournemouth have got another game, which is pretty much the automatic promotion shootout. Bournemouth in 2nd, Forest in 3rd. If Forest win, they'll go above Bournemouth on goal difference. If Bournemouth win, it looks like automatic promotion. Is it automatic promotion sealed if they win tomorrow? If they're 3 points ahead? Yeah.
3 points ahead, yeah, that would see them promoted, yeah.
Yeah. So Bournemouth Forest, big game tomorrow, but Bournemouth are playing Millwall at home on Saturday. That's pretty much the least important one of the 3 games I'm going to reel off now. Of the 4, but of the 3 games I'm going to reel off now. Luton at home to Reading. Reading surviving the drop a few weeks ago now. Of course, being hit with a points deduction, which sees them 4th bottom, although they probably wouldn't be there had the points deduction not been given. And then another big game, Sheffield United against Fulham. It could be the Fulham that turn up like they did today, that won 7-0 against Luton. It could be a Fulham that are all hungover from the champions celebrations that they're probably giving it large to tonight. And then, of course, Preston against Middlesbrough. 3 games there that are all equally important to each other. I think it's fair to say that we have it out of our hands. It's nothing to do with us. It's Fulham,
aren't we? Really, we've got to do our job, of course.
Yeah,
but we're relying on other teams now.
Yeah, we are. So Luton need to completely secure these playoff spots. Luton need 2 points. Sheffield United need 2 points. Boro need a victory at Preston on Saturday and need slip-ups from either Sheffield United or Luton. If Luton draw and Boro win, Boro will be in the playoffs. That's fair to say now because Luton's goal difference is absolutely battered. And if it be Sheffield United that falters, then it'll depend how they falter pretty much. Boro need to score 2 at least on Saturday. Well, I'll just say the way it goes. If results go certain ways, it's ordered in points, of course, goal difference, of course, and then goals scored and head-to-head, which head-to-head against Sheffield United wouldn't be great with that performance at Bramall Lane earlier on in the season. Head-to-head against Luton, we'd also miss out there.
Luton 4-3 winners if you want to make an aggregate scoreline, I believe.
Yeah, and of course, if you want to look back to that Luton game as well, we conceded a daft goal in the last minute against Luton at home, which didn't impact the game at all. Probably wasn't needed on the balance of play either, but it could well cost us if results go certain ways. So we'll just have to see. It's not in our hands. We need slip-ups. We'll be in that away end on Saturday, 12:30 as well, which is a bit unfortunate that it's that early. Not the greatest, but we'll all be there. Just shy of 6,000 Boro fans in that away end at Deepdale on Saturday. Everyone will have the phones fully charged, checking scores every 2 minutes elsewhere in the country at Sheffield and at Luton, hoping for Paul Ince's Royals, of course, ex-Boro, and Marco Silva's champions, Fulham, to do the business. We need it if we have any chance, but we just need to focus on ourselves as well. We need to do the business ourselves.
Yeah, I think, as you say, the rest of it is out of our hands. The most important thing, and, probably stating the obvious a little bit, is we win our game. Because if we don't win, it's all over. It doesn't matter what results go, whichever way. The most important thing for Middlesbrough is 3 points. And, of course, as we usually do, we will preview that game now. As you say, backed by an incredible away following. Preston over the years. I mean, there has been some good results. I think we were talking about one the other day, Tony Pulis's first game, 2-0 down at half-time, and we flipped it on its head and won that game. Of course, there's been it's a weird one, Preston, because in my mind, I feel like it's been a horrific place for us, but actually, I think in recent times, it probably...
I would argue it hasn't been. Although we did get beat there last season under Neil Warnock, it's been a pretty nice place to go for us. I've been to Deepdale 3 times, and I don't want to say what the results have been because it's going to jinx it. I'm not going to say, but good. I've enjoyed my time at Deepdale. I'll say that every single time I've been there.
Duck as well. Are you a fan of the Duck?
Deepdale Duck, yeah, he's a decent mascot, to be fair. He's not the worst one I've seen, but he's not the best one I've seen either. But yeah, it's going to be a difficult game, isn't it? Although Preston have nothing to play for, I don't expect them to just roll over in the game. Of course, Ryan Lowe is their manager, only been there about 6 months now, I think. He left Plymouth to go to Preston. And yeah, it's quite strange, really. They hit a bit of good form in the new year and threatened to sort of crash the playoff party, I suppose. But again, have sort of just fell away, similarly to Stoke, really. This quite similar to us in the way they're set up, with a 3-5-2 or a 3-1-4-2, if you want to call it that, with a sitter like Johnny Howson just in front of the back three. They have Ben Whiteman in that position. And of course, two centre forwards that are relatively decent in this division. Emil Rees-Jacobsen is their top goal scorer and scored at the Riverside earlier on in the season. And Cameron Archer, who was in January before signing for Preston, linked with a lot of Championship sides, of course on loan from Aston Villa, touted as their sort of next player to come out of the academy, really. So a difficult test coming. I certainly feel that it's not going to be easy at all, although Preston have absolutely nothing to play for.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have anything to play for apart from ruining our season. I'm saying ruining our season, ruining the potential result of Middlesbrough making the playoffs. But of course, who knows? We may go on and put a magnificent performance on, win 5-0, and other results will mean that we don't even end up getting close to the playoffs. It just, as we've already mentioned, it's out of our hands. But the most important thing is we go there and hopefully get the 3 points. It's going to be an exciting day. I don't think that can be debated. It'll certainly be very nervy. I hope to everything that is holy that I can get an internet connection on my phone, because that'll be driving me insane if I'm trying to refresh scores. And to be honest, the whole away end will be as well. So I'm sure we'll find out from one person what's going on. But yeah, it's I think you've just got to enjoy the roller coaster, haven't you?
You do. We had this a few years ago under Tony Pulis. We were away at Rotherham, and it depended on Derby, playing West Brom at home. And I remember being in the away end. We were 2-0 up. Sorry, it went 2-1. We won the game 2-1 in the end. John Obi Mikel scored his first and only Middlesbrough goal. And we certainly knew the Derby score when the New York Stadium erupted, as if they had scored the goal, which wasn't the nicest thing. But yeah, we can't really be relying on other teams, although we're going to have to at the weekend. We just need to make sure that we do our job. And if our job's not enough, then that's worth looking at other games earlier on in the season, really. But yeah, an exciting day it looks to be. Just suppose everyone has to get behind the boys and just roar the ball in the back of the net in front of the 6,000 Boro fans at Deepdale. It'll be a fantastic day out, I'm sure, anyway.
Yeah, well, that 6,000 will include me and you, and of course, fortunately, we have, well, at least the run before the Birmingham game was broken, so at least that's not hanging over my head going into the game. I mean, it's still not a great away record, but I feel like at least it's not consecutive defeats now. Yeah, as you say, it's exciting, it's nervous, I don't know what the television situation actually is, whether what games are on Sky on the final day. I am, of course, because, we'll be there. I can't lie, I haven't taken much notice of it, but I'm sure there'll be some around the grounds.
Yeah, there'll be some red button thing on, won't there?
Yeah. God, the nerves are already kicking in, to be honest, and it's only Monday now, Nathan. So I think that's us done now, whilst I've still got at least parts of my fingernails still intact before I inevitably take them all off in the away end on Saturday. Mm-hmm. Nathan, unless I've missed anything, I think that's us done, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. Just throw it out there as well. The players had the Player of the Year awards last night.
I knew there was something I missed. It was the awards evening. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so just reel them off. I'll see if I can remember them all. Johnny Helsing, Player of the Year, voted for by the fans.
Deserved.
Fantastic. I know everyone calls Calvin Phillips the Yorkshire Pirlo, but I think Johnny Howson could have that name as well, if I'm honest. Absolutely outstanding all year round. Brilliant player. And sign the contract, Johnny, by the way, please. If it's not already on the table, then what the club doing?
It needs to be on the table, that's for sure.
It does need to be on the table. Young Player of the Year, Isaiah Jones, again, deserved. Everyone will know that. Arguably Middlesbrough star man all season. Certainly the one that's blown onto the scene, broke on the scene at the start of the season. No one expected him to be in and around the first team at the start of the season. And he came on at Fulham on the first day and has pretty much established himself in the side ever since. As he said in his speech last night, he didn't expect himself to be a right wing back and be defending, but he's done that job for the team fantastically well. And yeah, well deserved for that one as well, Isaiah. Moment of the year, that was Sol, wasn't it? Sol making his, I think that was Sol making his appearance.
You know what? I'm going to quickly check these. We'll just
goal of the season, I know, was Josh Coburn against Tottenham Hotspur. Again, fantastic goal. Probably for the occasion, but the strike was fantastic as well. Right in the top corner, a proper FA Cup story. That one, with a young academy graduate scoring the winner against Premier League opposition to send Middlesbrough to the FA Cup quarterfinals. Players player was Isaiah Jones as well. That is for, of course, the playing staff voting for who they think is player of the year. Well deserved again. And yeah, I think the last Cruxy won an award as well. I think you'll have it there, Chris.
Yeah, I'm glad I checked actually. Moment of the year was also Josh Coburn's goal.
Was it?
So I'm unsure
what
the award for Sol was, but to be honest, I don't know. I don't really care what award it was. He just deserved some sort of award.
He did. He's been absolutely remarkable. I think it's fair to say that any Middlesbrough fan, when we first signed Sol Bamba, just thought he was going to be very much part of the furniture under Neil Warnock. But when he's been called upon, wow, he's been absolutely outstanding in pretty much every performance he's had to put in for Middlesbrough. Playing the last few weeks consecutively over and over a few days rest for Sol probably hasn't been the best thing for him and the best thing for us either. He did say after Bournemouth he can probably only play once every couple of games because he needs that rest and recuperation period. But he filled in there for us in the absence of Dale Fry and didn't really put a foot wrong, given age and given his job in this side, pretty much as the sweeper, as Paddy McNair and Anthony Dijksteel bomb up the line. So Sol's just pretty much left there by himself to defend. But yeah, again, so Sol just, what a man. I think I put it on my Twitter yesterday or the day before. What an inspiration! What a story that man has. And it's been a true pleasure to watch him play and have him represent our football club this season.
Yeah, I couldn't have put it better, as you say. I think all awards I'd agree with thoroughly deserved. You know, it's regardless of what happens on Saturday, it's been a very good season and a season where a lot of people actually probably over the last few years been a little bit disengaged. Have probably had the chance to fall in love with Middlesbrough again. And yeah, just on Sol Bamba, as you said, you know, there's a few players where you sort of watch them play and think, well, they're a great player, but there's a very select few where you actually watch them play and then listen to the way that they talk and you think, what a human being. And Sol Bamba's one of them. Remarkable recovery from everything that he went through. Carries himself as good as any professional. And as you say, he may, try and make out as though it's been a pleasure playing for us, but actually it's been a pleasure letting him play for this football club because he's just an unbelievable man. So, yeah, I think that is us done now. We've covered, I knew I'd forgotten something, but you reminded me. And we now await Saturday, and I can't wait.
Yeah, it can't come soon enough. We're on Monday now, of course, having recorded this after Luton got battered. Hopefully that plays into Reading's hands, that Luton got dismantled this evening. But we can't be worrying about that. We've got to worry about ourselves. If we do the business on Saturday, we'll just have to check the scores at full time and see where it lands us. If it doesn't land us in the playoffs, it is what it is. We've had an incredible season, lots of memories made already. If it does land us there, let's bring it on.
Yes, exactly. I think you've just said you'll check the scores at full time. I think we might know slightly before then what the results are, but we'll certainly be checking. Anyway, we've waffled on for long enough at the end. I feel like we've had about 4 separate endings, but who cares? 2 wins brings out, some would argue, the best, some would argue the worst in us, Nathan. One thing's for sure, it's going to be an interesting end to the season. And as always, we'd like to thank you for watching or listening, whichever you may choose to do. And as always, also, please do give us a kind rating, because I think I said last week, if we don't get the results we're after, it'll cheer us up. And if we do, it'll put us in an even better mood. And there was a few ratings I did spot on Spotify, so thank you very much for those. Please continue to do so. I definitely will stop waffling now. That has been another episode of the Boropolis Podcast, and we'll see you again next week.